Welcome to Behind the Muscle podcast. Today's guest is an IFBB pro and the 2021 Mr. USA. Today's guest is Jordan Hutchinson. Jordan, welcome back to the podcast, man.
Thanks, Quentin. I appreciate you having me, man.
Yeah, for sure. So, Jordan, before we get into it, I'm just going to let all of you guys that are listening or watching this episode of Behind the Muscle podcast, I'm just going to let you know that Jordan was on the podcast and we kind of did the normal, typical Behind the Muscle episode in terms of getting into Jordan's life story and bodybuilding story shortly after he won Mr. USA last year. So it's been well over a year. So today, Jordan and I are just going to kind of catch up, talk shop, and kind of keep it light. So, Jordan, I want to kind of start off with asking you, winning Mr. USA last year, 2021, that's obviously a huge accomplishment. That's, very few people will ever accomplish that feat. I want you to kind of share with us, though, what was life like after you won Mr. USA? Was it a little overwhelming? Was it kind of hard to grasp? And then, talk about just maybe some of those few months after you won NPC USA last year.
Yeah. So, honestly, it completely changed my life. Not only did that happen, but also, my social media grew a lot because of that, but also just because during prep, there were a few videos I put out on my page that kind of went viral and stuff. And so I got a really big, well, comparatively a lot more followers, and just kind of grew there, and everything just kind of flip-flopped. So I've been running a coaching business prior, and so that really took off. After that, it was just kind of like surprising to me because I wasn't used to that. I wasn't used to, I guess, as so much attention, which I don't, I appreciate, but it was just weird to me because before I was like a nobody. I kind of came from really nothing. I was just a local NPC guy. A lot of the guys in North Carolina knew me, but aside from that, I wasn't known really anywhere else. So it definitely changed things for me a lot. It was weird at first, but I've definitely got more used to it. And of course, you kind of ride that high with the prep and the end of the prep, and everything's like, people are paying attention. But then I've been in this 2-year, I've been in a over a year off season. It'll be 2 years by the end of it. And so of course that kind of falls off. So it's weird. It comes in waves.
Right.
So
was it, I want you to be real with us, obviously as much as you want, but I really want you to talk about, was it overwhelming? Did it create some like angst and anxiety, and was it really like, did you kind of have to like, anchor yourself and really stay focused on like who you were and stuff like that? Like, with all the recognition, all the attention, did you lose yourself a little bit? Like, just touch on that. Cause I've had some other guys on here that have, won top competitions. And I just had a guy the other day talking about how, like toxic and how you can really lose yourself within just being a bodybuilder and being, in the hunt for the pro card and then an IFBB. So touch on that if you don't mind.
yeah, I definitely know what you mean. So, maybe not. So I'm pretty grounded in who I am. Me and my wife have a great relationship. She's a great supporter. I have great family and friends around me. And I also kind of live in a bubble somewhat because I'm out in Western North Carolina, and bodybuilding is not a big thing at all here. There's not that many pros in North Carolina alone, and so not many people around here really are super into it in Western North Carolina. So that was nice because I could kind of separate myself. But I would say at first, it definitely it put a lot of pressure on me because I just come out of like a 6-month prep. My wife wanted just to focus on us and me, and I wanted to focus on us too. But at the same time, I had this pressure of, well, I just went pro. Now I got to be a pro. Now I've got I've got these sponsorship opportunities possibly. I've got an off season to start. I've got to look towards a pro debut. I got this, and this, and I couldn't just stop and enjoy it. And that was probably my biggest struggle that me and my wife both went through. And I'm glad that she, helped me keep a good mindset through it, because I definitely felt a lot of pressure. I definitely was just like wanting to be the best I could possibly be. But I've always pressured myself to get there too soon and don't just like allow myself to chill and enjoy it. So I mean, that's from my point of view, that was the hardest part. Just not staying too focused on it to where that was all I thought about, all I did, all I talked about, because it was just weird. My whole life shifted to where that's all I did. I mean, I quit my job as of February, and prior to that, I was like went down to super part-time because I just didn't have time for it. So it definitely changed a lot of things. I can see how some people it could be super toxic, but I would say with my environment, it was a lot more healthy.
Cool.
So.
And you're an individual of faith, so I'm sure that probably is something that really anchors you and grounds you as well, right, Jordan?
Yeah, I mean, I have a point of view that there's a lot more than this life, and there's a lot more than just bodybuilding, because bodybuilding could go away tomorrow. And so I don't want to be a person that just is solely focused on bodybuilding, which is hard because it takes up so much of my day. So I don't believe necessarily in balance as like, oh, I need to have balance with my food, with like things that I want to cheat from bodybuilding, but balance with my mindset and with my faith and things that matter, with family, things that are going to last beyond these years I have of bodybuilding. So that definitely helped me stay grounded, but it was a challenge at the same time.
Right. Okay. So things kind of start to slow down a little bit in terms of after winning the USA. So why don't you walk us through, did you like take some time off, or did you and Chris try to get some gains in terms of the rebound, and then you took some time off? Like, walk us through that. I mean, I'm sure there was probably some sort of like health phases, and then when did you guys kind of start gearing up in terms of really going into an off season, and talk about this extended off season and what it's been like for you?
Yeah, so that was another interesting part. So without going into too much detail of my personal life, post USA's, I definitely kept training hard, kept diet perfect. But as far as, pushing really, really hard for size, we didn't come out of the gate really, really cranking it. Definitely was a health phase. Everything was good. I'm big on health with bodybuilding. Checking on all your blood work, blood pressure, all those things. Everything had been good, especially considering a long prep. And me and my wife were, considering, of course, I was wanting to spend more time on her. That alone was trying to just balance everything, but also like maybe it was time to start a family. Didn't seem like it was the time for us, sadly, but we just decided to keep pushing for later on. So it took about a 3-month period before I started pushing. So that was kind of part of it, where I was kind of struggling because I felt a little bit stagnant, because a lot of people rebound right out of a show. And I had to go through this longer health phase of trying to pull back and let my body rest so that I could, possibly start a family and everything. So that was tough because I was conflicting. I was like, I've got this pro card that I've just won, and I have this pro debut to chase after, but yet I'm kind of a little bit stagnant right now for this other part of my life. So that was probably one of my biggest struggles. And then about 3 to 4 months after USA's is when I started pushing, and we pushed body weight up. I think I was in the low 250s or so, and I just kind of settled there. And then we started pushing up and pushed up pretty quickly.
So now you've been in an off season now for over a year, compared to like previous off seasons, like as an NPC athlete. What was like your longest off season as an NPC athlete previously? Have you ever had an off season this long in the past?
I definitely have. So that's something I also am gonna start up with my YouTube, and start talking more about, because I feel like not a lot of people focus enough on their off seasons. And I see a lot of competitors talking about pro cards and they're really pushing for that, but yet they're not devoted enough to take the off season time. So one of my biggest stories is what I did prior to USA's. If I showed you pictures of my showing in 2018, you'd be kind of blown away, because I was like, I was over dieted for one thing, but I was about 196, I believe, at that show. And then 3 years later was USA's, where I tapped out the heavyweights. So, almost 3 years, 2.5 years in off season, then 6 months in prep. And that's the only way I would have been able to do what I did. So it's definitely not my longest off season, but I believe in long off seasons until you're where you need to be. Yeah. You've got these pros like Nick Walker. He's massive. He doesn't need to put on a bunch of size on that frame. Mm-hmm. So he doesn't need to take tons of time off. More just like time for health and small improvements, right? But for someone like me, where I'm trying to catch up to those guys and that kind of size, there's no reason for me to just jump into show after show, year after year. So I'm a big believer in off seasons. So yeah, it's definitely not my longest off season. Prior to that, I think I've only done a few shows. I did an NPC show in 2017. Prior to that was a natural show in 2015. 2018, I did another NPC show, and then waited all the way till 2021. So it's been, most of my time has been spent just growing and improving.
Yeah. Now, I want you, if you don't mind, talk a little bit about like the mental side of these extended off seasons. We touched on it lightly before I hit record, but I think that's something else that I would like to see more light shed on, in terms of from you pros and top NPC athletes specifically, is the fact that, bodybuilding, yes, obviously there's the physical side to bodybuilding, but the more conversations I have with top NPC athletes and IFBB pros, a lot of them bring up to all of us watching and listening the fact that bodybuilding is a mental game more than anything, right? And yeah, as your mind goes, your body and everything else in your life is going to go. And I believe that myself. So talk about the mental game within these extended off seasons, and how important is it to have a strong mindset, not just as a bodybuilder, but to do bodybuilding the right way, to progress the right way, to be, the best version of yourself as a pro now.
Yeah. So, I mean, mindset is everything, because, we call it off season, and to the average person, they think, oh, that's the time you take off, when really, I would say for me, prep is probably easier. There's plenty of times in the off season where I get to a very uncomfortable spot with food, and I'm talking clean food. There's plenty of guys that'll do the dirty bulking thing, which doesn't work. And so I'm big on, like I said, health before. So I'm big on eating a lot of clean food, relatively clean, and just really pushing the boundaries as far as what your body can do. And you really got to push the food. So mentally, it's hard. You're every day you're pushing food harder and harder. You may get to a point where you don't ever want to eat, but you still have to eat every 2 to 3 hours. And then you're training. Hopefully, you're training really hard. You have to train more and more and more intense, and keep gaining strength in the gym, and working on your mechanical tension through your movements, like improving upon those things. And it's a constant evolution of just building your body over the course of a long period. It's not like with prep, you see changes every week. So people are a lot more motivated in prep, whereas in off season, it's hard because you don't really see what you're building yet. And not to mention, with the social media these days, everybody wants to see some ripped physique, right? Especially the general population. So, and that's something I struggle with too, with social media, is just trying to have the same engagement when I'm in off season versus when I'm in prep. And because all I have to do is throw up a picture of me, 8 weeks out, and everybody has something to say, but it's very different in the off season. So a lot of people like that attention, and I've never been one to need it. So I just keep my head down, like I'll try to get as much information out there as I can. And the algorithms on social media may not work in my favor when I'm fluffy off season, but that's what it takes, is to kind of ignore the attention grabbing type physique for a little while and sacrifice that, and just really push for size. It's all a mental game, because the longer you do it for, the better you'll get. As soon as you go into that prep process, very few people can grow in a prep. So generally you're going to be improving your physique till that point you start prep, and then you're at a standstill until you start an off season again.
Excellent.
So,
how long have you been working with Chris Tuttle, Jordan?
Yeah, it was January 2020. So we're coming up on 3 years. It's been awesome. He knows me so well at this point. I mean, even into USA prep, he knew me very well. But especially after that, we've like really locked it in. So I appreciate him so much. He's been great for me.
And I appreciate him too. He's been on the podcast a couple of times, and I think, he's getting better and better and better as a coach, and he's the real deal. Now, in terms of, you said for the most part in this off season, you focus on health and you focus on clean foods. Now, will you just walk us through a little bit of like what maybe a typical day of eating kind of looks like? Because, we kind of like to hear that stuff from you pros. So, and then do you kind of have like a set day, or one meal in the off season a day, whereas like it's kind of a free meal? What does that look like, Jordan?
Yeah, so I do 6 meals a day consistently. We're all the way up to 900 grams of carbs a day right now. And surprisingly, it's not even, I don't want to jinx myself, but right now it's actually pretty easy. So about 6,000 calories, and it's, we go up and down depending on where we're at, maintenance or pushing. But right now we're pushing for more size, and it's a lot of the same foods. I mean, I eat cream of rice 3 times a day. So like my pre and post workouts, cream of rice. In the morning I do cream of rice for carbs, and then I'll either do sourdough bread or English muffins. So that's not like super clean, but it's easy to digest. You just want easy to digest foods. Then I'll do my eggs and my egg whites, fruit. I have fruits or vegetables on every meal, no matter what. So then, that's the meal 1. Then meal 2 and 3 is just chicken and rice meals. And then we add some like apple juice or sourdough bread for carbs. And then pre and post workouts, the cream of rice and whey, almond butter and fruit, some honey. I do intra workout carbs. Condemned Labs has a great product for that. And then my last meal of the day is a beef meal, and I'll do either brown rice pasta or rice with that. So it's definitely a lot of, cream of rice, brown rice pasta. It's just a lot of rice product stuff. And then the sourdough bread is great for your gut health, as far as if you're getting like good bakery sourdough bread. I've noticed that's super easy for my body to digest. So everything right now is just trying to get fast digesting foods, but clean foods. And then as far as cheat meals go, I do 1 a week. A rare occasion, if there's like some special occasion going on, or family get together or whatever, family's going out to eat, I may have an extra one in there that I'll try to keep more clean and macro match or something in the middle of the week. But max, it's 2 meals off plan. But generally just one on the weekend with my wife. But that's about to stop. Because side note, she's going into prep and her coach has got her in kind of in a prep mode already. And so I believe our last cheat meal together was last weekend until both of us are done competing next year. So we may have a while without any dinner dates.
So no go on Thanksgiving, huh?
Well, he's got he was going to allow Thanksgiving and Christmas for her, but I think that's about it.
Okay. That's a nice coach, a friendly coach.
Yeah, yeah.
Now let's I want to ask you then about have there been so you mentioned kind of like gut health, right? And I know with Chris that's a huge thing. We're starting to hear more of that within the bodybuilding community, which I think a lot of it is I won't say it's misinformation, but it's misguided information. Like, hey, just take these probiotics and you're good to go. Which that's just not the case. But so in terms of gut health, what is Chris kind of stressed with you? And then have you had any like flare-ups or have you had any issues along this extended period of time in terms of off season where, you know, maybe you had some acid reflux or any gut stuff that you guys kind of had to correct along the way?
Yeah, there's times where it's definitely just flared up out of nowhere. Like overall, my digestion is pretty good. I'm consistent with my water intake. My meal timing is pretty consistent. You know, I don't use a ton of seasonings. Like I don't overdo the sauces. If there's like a sauce that I use, I make sure I digest it really well. Like I don't do a ton of hot sauces because sometimes like garlic, onion, hot sauces, sometimes they just don't digest so well. I just keep to the things that I know work for me. And then sometimes I will have some like acid reflux flare ups and I'll do, what is it? There's this Doctor's Best brand like Pepsin product that I'll use for my acid reflux. Occasionally I'll have to do like you know, like an apple cider vinegar lemon juice drink in the morning. I don't consistently do that because I generally don't deal with a lot of acid reflux, but my clients that I have and then my wife does this as well, you know, like the typical apple cider vinegar lemon juice, aloe vera juice, sometimes glutamine, like that's a great gut health drink. Luckily I haven't really had to do much of that. But I do take digestive enzymes through the day with my GDA, my glucose disposal agent that Condemned Labs makes. So I take the Humislin with a few meals a day. That really helps me to digest well. But it's overall just being consistent. I don't really throw myself off too much. Especially with cheat meals, though, that's something Chris is big about. He doesn't want me having anything that's going to throw me off digestion wise, because you can have something one meal and you go crazy with pizza and dairy, and so you for 72 hours you could be super screwed up digestion wise, and you can really put yourself back for the whole week. So that's something we focused on as well.
What's kind of your go-to cheat meal then, Jordan?
Sushi generally. I mean, I can't ever go wrong with that. Sometimes I'll do like burger and fries. Usually I feel pretty good with the typical bodybuilder stuff. You know, I'll go get a steak and a potato. That's awesome. And like maybe a side that's like a little dirtier, load the potato or whatever. I just can't do a lot of dairy, like ice cream or like I said, pizza or really cheesy or creamy like Italian food, stuff like that. I have to kind of reserve myself, or at least just have small amounts of it, and try to keep it a little more clean.
Okay, cool. Okay, now I want to talk about training. Now we're gonna just kind of keep it simple. So from the time that you you know won the overall at USA's in 2021, kind of up to this point, has your training evolved, or have you manipulated or changed your training at all, or has it really pretty much just been the same since that point?
I've actually had to change it a lot. Not necessarily as far as maybe the exercise selection or the split, more so the way I train, the rep range I train in. I was getting so many tweaks and Just little aches and pains here and there, but a lot of them were like my left pec, my right shoulder, my adductors, both of them over and over. And so I'm trying to work on mobility stuff as well, but I think it also had to do with just the amount of weight I was using. I was getting a lot stronger really quick, and using weight that was making me nervous because it was stuff I'd never touched before, especially with legs. I'm pretty quad dominant. So like my hack squats, I was working up to like 9 plates per side for 10 plus reps. And I just had to really take a step back. My knees were killing me. And I really just had to start slowing everything way down. I was never one to just crank out reps, bounce stuff off my chest or anything like that. But I'm to the point now where I'm doing like 2-3 second negatives, pausing at the bottom, tons of constant tension work for leg training. Like last night, my top set was 19 reps on the hack squat, doing like 3 second negatives, so it's stuff like that where I'm trying to avoid injury. And some of it has actually seemed to help me progress faster. And so that's something I've been a big proponent about this off season to talk more about, because it's helped me so much. I've always been someone that's big on controlling the weight that you're using in the gym and no ego lifting, but even more so now after I've been able to work through injuries and keep training hard and not have to take a step back and not get any worse and not have any major injuries. So
what's your training split kind of look like currently, Jordan?
Yeah, so we're focused on back a lot right now. So at the end of the week on Friday, I have a full back day, but the week starts with the shoulders and back. So it's primary shoulders, secondary back. On Monday, Tuesday is full legs. Wednesday I take off. Thursday is chest and shoulders, so secondary shoulders. Just kind of touch them up at the end, and then back on Friday, and then Saturday's arms. So arms have always been a focal point anyways for me. I have to have a set day for arms for them to really respond. But other than that, we've really been trying to just slap on a size on my back. So
what movements for your back? I'm assuming you're trying to hit everything in terms of you're trying to get wider and thicker for your back. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think thicker more so than wide. My lats definitely are responding super well. They're sweeping a lot more. I notice a lot of growth there. It's my upper middle back, my rhomboids, my lower traps, that area that I'm really focused on growing. And I've been kind of cycling through. So Monday is more of an upper back focused day. And then Friday, I'll have 1 or 2 movements that recruit upper back, but mostly lats.
Okay.
But some staples like a chest supported T-bar row with a wider grip for my upper back. That's been one that I've really focused on. Smith machine rows have been great for lats and upper back. I've been doing barbell rows for a while and then switched out to Smith machine, and it's just much better control and contraction. And then I've been working a lot of single arm work with cables and stuff. So it's just been, like I said before, I've been so focused on just controlling the weight for the last little bit and feeling every bit of every movement and not feeling like it's necessary for me to just pull some super heavy weight. Right. But heavy with really good control, and it's been working super well.
It's interesting. I was listening to Ian Valier yesterday on his recent YouTube chest training, and he does a great job of kind of explaining why he's doing things, and you can tell he's very intelligent in terms of training and just the bodybuilding lifestyle. But he said something in there which I knew, but it's always I don't know if it's not necessarily reassuring, but it's just always encouraging when you hear things that from like an IFBB pro or somebody you look up to, right? And he said tension is king, And he said he has moved away from like all free weight movements, specifically, especially when it comes to his chest, because that's kind of like an area that he continues to try to bring up. And he said, so
Right.
he's doing all basically machines and Smith machines, stuff like that. But he said, that tension is king. And that's kind of like what you're saying right now. So just for those people watching or listening, maybe just reiterate or explain a little bit more in detail, like, what does it mean when like Ian and you are talking about tension or time under tension? Like, I understand it, but I just want to provide some takeaways for some people that may not necessarily understand what you guys mean or what you're talking about with the tension thing.
Yeah, so mechanical tension is the focus. So I mean, you're doing a press, like you don't want to take that tension off your chest the entire movement. You want to make sure the target muscle is what has the tension throughout the movement, that you're not transferring it to other muscles by the way you're moving. So I'm not transferring that tension from my chest to my shoulders by coming out of my scapular retraction or whatever. Just, and like for squats, for instance, this is one of the biggest ones I see all the time. People just dropping and bouncing out of the hole. That's where pause reps come into play that are really beneficial. And people just dropping weight at terminal velocity, just like there's no writing it down slow. It's just drop, like nobody cares about the negative portion of the rep. And it may be more popular right now to talk about mechanical tension, but guys back in the 90s were talking about it in a different way. They were telling you how important the negative portion of the rep is. And you get a lot of mechanical tension by just taking that weight down slowly, and you can feel it. You can load that muscle, be ready for when you're about to engage it for that full contraction again at the top. And Ian's right. Like once you get to a certain level too, playing around with a lot of free weights is you can be kind of risking injury there too. And you can get so much tension out of the machine if you use the machine the right way. So it's just focusing on the tension, not the weight. And social media has a lot to do with that issue with people, is because everybody wants to show, look how much weight I can do on this movement or whatever. And if it's a deadlift, cool, but if you're trying to bodybuild and you want to create hypertrophy in the muscle, like you have to have that tension or you're not doing anything. You're just spinning your wheels. And so this is something I focus a lot on with my clients too. Like I have them all send me videos, and most often that's the thing I have to keep coming back to. It's like you're losing tension on the muscle. You're just kind of cranking it out. You're just moving it A to B. And we're trying to move it through that full range of motion with as much tension as we can get out of it. So it's very important for all those listening. I mean, like it can change the game for you for sure.
What rep? I mean, you said 19 reps on legs, like yesterday, but what's the rep ranges that you kind of like to stick to, or what rep ranges have you found to be beneficial for you in terms of growth and putting on size?
10 to 12 is what I prefer for most things, considering I'm not training around an injury at the time. I really like doing 1 or 2 sets at 10 to 12, and then I'll have a back off set that's like 12 to 15. And that's something me and Chris have talked about too, that he suggested for my arms. I've stuck to that for arms for every movement. I do like 3 tricep, 3 bicep, 10 to 12, 10 to 12, and then 12 to 15 every time. Now for legs, it's a bit different. Like I said, I keep having these adductor injuries, and I've talked to a few other pro bodybuilders that have had the same injuries. And of course I need to work on my mobility and open my hips up, but at the same time, your legs can respond to, if you're moving heavy weight for 15 to 20 reps, they're still going to respond. I prefer to stay a little closer for a top set around like 13 to 15 for my legs. If I'm doing something that's, a heavy Smith squat or a hack squat or something like that. But it does vary from depending on the muscle group. But overall, back, shoulders, arms and chest, like everything except for legs, I prefer like a 10 to 12 for my first top sets. It's just legs that I train a little bit higher rep range. Mainly the weight was getting a little sketchy last off season, and even before USA's I hurt both adductors, and then afterwards as well. So I've kind of just had to train around that and realize I can't push the same anymore unless I'm really, really loose.
Yeah.
So,
What's your go-to for arm movements? Because that's something you said you've kind of always been focusing on.
yeah, for triceps, I've seen a lot of growth from JM presses on the Smith machine. Um, I've had that in for at least a year now for most arm days. Sometimes I'll kind of do a hybrid and it'll turn a little bit more into a skull crusher, depending on how I've had issues on and off of that my left pec. But I really do like the JM presses. And I have the Prime Fitness bars where they have different links for where you can put your handles. I don't know if you've seen those. I love that for tricep push downs. So I'll get it to where I don't have to move anything. It's just like right in line with the path of my elbow, and I can push straight down. That's one of my go-tos. And then for biceps, preacher curl machine, and hammer curls, I love those. Sometimes I cycle out my biceps more. Triceps have stayed pretty much the same.
Okay.
So
You ever for biceps, you ever do any cable work or not necessarily?
I do, yeah. And I did put up a video. I forgot to mention this the other day on my Instagram. It's the dual cable curls facing away from the machine. That's one of my favorite ones. It's just one of the places I train at doesn't have that smaller cable stack where you can set that up. So I only get that when I'm at Biltmore Fitness, where I usually train, but Saturdays when I train arms, I'm usually not there. But that's probably my favorite bicep exercise, hands down. Yeah, forgot to mention that.
No, that's cool. I know I've seen Nick Walker do that. I think Brett Wilkin down there at the Revive gym. Quite a few of those guys. It's where you're standing up and you're pulled pretty far back, right? You're got that full length of your bicep extended, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, both
right.
arms back behind you. Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes they use like those fat grips or the fat handles. Do you use that or not?
No, I don't. I need to get some because I know I've talked to a few guys that have seen that to be pretty beneficial, but not currently. I'm just using regular handles.
Yeah. There's so much stuff out there, isn't there, Jordan? I mean, you go there's this machine and there's this handle, and it's just like, oh man. Yeah. Every time you get on Instagram, dude, you can find like a new toy that's supposedly gonna
there's always
help you feel something better, get you more jacked, right? It's just like, man, does it ever end? I don't think it ever will. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what you and Chris are thinking in terms of a pro debut. That was a big reason why I wanted to have you on here, because it's been over a year since I chatted with you, and I was like, I wonder when we're going to see Jordan back on stage. And I'm sure there's other people that are wondering that. So why don't you walk us through your guys' thought process in terms of possible pro debuts? Why these competitions? What are you guys thinking?
So right off the bat, when I won USA's, we were talking, and of course he moved from Connecticut to Texas. I guess maybe during my prep, I can't remember, but he lives maybe like half an hour, 20 minutes, half an hour from that show, I believe. And he just mentioned at the time, man, wouldn't it be cool if we did Texas Pro in 2023? And we were talking prior to the podcast about how tough that show was this last year. So it definitely is not one of the easier shows of the year. But that's not necessarily what I want. I always want to see how I stack up at the higher level. So that's what we kind of been thinking about. I'd be able to stay with him for like peak week or however long. And he'd be able to peak me in person more easily and be a little more relaxed. And plus I've never actually been to Texas. I would love to go and know a lot of people there. So that's what I'm hoping for. I don't know if we'll do multiple shows. I guess it kind of depends on how it goes. Tampa, I believe, is before that show. That may be a good one to do. or something shortly after. But that's been the goal in mind, and that's what motivates me in the gym. Is I'm always thinking about the Texas Pro, so that's kind of what I'm hoping for.
Cool, man. What's I'm sure we probably, I don't know if we touched on this a whole lot because you were fresh off your USA win when you were on round one, but what's kind of like your long-term competitive bodybuilding goal or vision that you're kind of pursuing or chasing after, Jordan?
It's funny. I think it's always changing because I don't think I ever saw myself being at this point this soon, anyways. I never really saw my potential until I figured out what really made my body tick, I guess, and had the right combinations of everything and my coach and all that. So I'd always had the dream of being a pro bodybuilder, but it was kind of like maybe by the time I'm 30, maybe like early 30s, maybe I'll be able to go pro and like do a pro show. That'd be cool, you know? And then on down the line, I fell more in love with it and goals got a little bigger. You know, once you go pro, if you're wanting to compete competitively, of course, the goal is to win a pro show and qualify for the Olympia. That's a dream of mine. So just to be on the Olympia stage would be amazing. I think I have the potential for it. It's just a matter of if that's what is supposed to happen in my life, you know. If that's God's plan for me, then it'll happen. But I'm just putting the work in now. I'm definitely not the type of person to just say, oh yeah, I'm going to make it here. I'm going to be top 5 in the Olympia. Because I don't know what tomorrow holds, but I know I'm putting the work in to make that happen. If I have the potential to do it, then I'll make it happen, you know?
Yeah. Now, now that you've been an IFBB pro, you haven't made your pro debut yet, but you're an IFBB pro. It's been, well over a year. Now that you're kind of on the other side of being an IFBB pro, is it everything? And you're full-time coaching, you're working at home, you're kind of living the life that I think a lot of people, due to Instagram and social media, are kind of like they're chasing after what you're living right now. Like that's kind of like the vibe I get from a lot of people, especially the NPC guys that I bring on that are kind of on the come up. It's like, they got kind of their full-time job. They love bodybuilding. They got the coaching thing on the side. They want to be a full-time coach and be a full-time bodybuilder. Right. I don't know if it's everything that's cracked up to be. So that's kind of like what I want to ask you. Now that you're on this side, is it everything that maybe you thought it was going to be when you were still an NPC athlete? Like, touch on that for a minute, please.
Yeah, it's funny you asked that because that's something I've been wrestling with, especially the last like couple months. And me and my wife have had a lot of conversations about this. Like, I'm an extrovert. I may not be super talkative all the time, but like I like to be around people. So it almost drains me sometimes to be at home working. And we've got our animals. We got a dog and a couple cats, and they keep me company, but like I need that human interaction, and so sometimes it's a little draining. And it's also like it's different than working a job. I've talked a lot with Chris, my coach, about this, just getting his advice on, man, time management, because every day you're doing the same things, but sometimes you really want to have that same strict schedule, and you hope your clients check in on time, and you hope you can get everything knocked out and not just be working all day long. You want to be really efficient with everything. It's definitely very different. I mean, there's some days where I feel like, gosh, I just sat around all day. Like, what did I even do today? And then there's other days where I'm like, man, I knocked out all these plans, and like I had these new clients sign up and I had to knock out all their stuff, and all these clients are doing good this week, and it's cool. So it's like I have to remain grateful for it. But it's funny you asked that because I've really been kind of wrestling with that. And my wife even had to remind me, she's like, you do know this is like what you were dreaming about doing. This is everything you wanted to do. So be grateful. So it's hard. Like, she's been super supportive of me, and she runs her own business too now. It's funny because as of February of this year, we both quit our jobs and started our own business. So she does Airbnb cleaning. She runs her own business and is doing super well. with that. So we're both super thankful for what we've got. It's just weird. I can say it's weird. So the people that want that super bad, I guess I didn't think about the fact like, well, I'm going to be alone for most of the time, all day, every day. And really trying to manage my own schedule, which I'm not always good at. So it's definitely been a lot of learning how to deal with this new lifestyle I have. But it definitely caters to bodybuilding if I'm very strict on my schedule.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of the coaching stuff, Jordan, for yourself, is that something like career-wise that you want to continue to build? And, do you see yourself kind of like, in the shoes of maybe a Chris Tuttle at some point where it's like, he was an IFBB pro, he competed, he's retired. And from everything that I've, talked to him about, I mean, him and his wife, they do it together, the coaching. And it's just, they've got a long-term waiting list for new clients. I mean, it's just unbelievable how successful they've been. And I think they're dabbling like into real estate now. But is that kind of like your long-term goal, is you want to continue to build the coaching business, or do you kind of see yourself maybe at some point when the bodybuilding stuff is over, maybe you will transition into another career or something else, or is that just too far in the future to think about?
It's a little far ahead. I mean, I want to always do this. I do. Like whether or not another opportunity arises for, paying the bills. Like, I love helping people to get towards the goals that they have. Like, competitors take a lot of time with coaching, like versus the lifestyle clients. I coach both, I'll coach any type, but, I do find a lot of joy in coaching people that like maybe they've been struggling with their bodybuilding journey, and then they get with me and they're like, oh wow, this has like changed everything for me. It makes me feel so good and makes me excited. So I would love to always do this, and my goal is to grow my business and my experience. I want to experience every type of competitor, every type of lifestyle client. Just get really even better at what I do every day. And yeah, maybe grow it to that extent at some point. But I still want to keep it limited to allow me to focus on bodybuilding for now. So being a full-time bodybuilder for me and Chris had this conversation the other day, because this past week, my schedule has been kind of messed up. So he's like, look, man, you only get to be young once, and this is your time to be a pro bodybuilder, and you're either going to make the most of it or you're not. And though I'm perfect on like my meals, don't miss meals, don't miss training, whatever, we're looking at the little minute details of, I missed an hour of sleep here. My meal schedule is a little bit off here. I felt a little bloated, stuff like that, like little details. So while I'm still bodybuilding, I want to focus on being a bodybuilder and hopefully make a career out of that. If I'm good enough, that's the goal, and still have coaching and be like a hybrid. And then once I decide to retire and be done with bodybuilding, I would love to go full on into coaching, just like take as many as I can handle once I'm not bodybuilding anymore. But, if my wife's business grows and I need to get involved in that, I would do that too. Like being more like a management overseer kind of position, to try to help her with scheduling and stuff like that. It just kind of depends on where life goes for us. But overall, my goal is to still just be the pro bodybuilder for a while, depending on how well I do.
Cool, man. Okay, we're gonna wrap it up here shortly. I want to ask you just some lighter questions, some more fun questions, I guess. I'm assuming you paid attention to the USA's and North Americans this year, right?
Yes. Yeah, I'm trying to jog my memory of who won.
What's that? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I was trying to jog my memory of who North Americans. I remember not quite as much as USA's, but
Felix Norman won North Americans.
That's right. Okay, yeah, and he competed at USA.
Stu Sutherland won USA. So
right, yeah, I saw USA's. Yeah,
not and it doesn't necessarily have to be about those two guys, because there's other guys that turned pro too, or maybe somebody that didn't turn pro. But any guys from USA's and North Americans kind of catch your eye, whether they turn pro or not, or whether they were the overall winner or not? I mean, anybody off the top of your head, or not necessarily?
Well, I mean, Stu, I've never talked to the guy. I don't know him personally. I have friends that are friends with him. But he impressed me for sure. Especially jumping into Tampa Pro right after it. I think that's the show he did.
Yeah.
But of course he impressed me. I've seen pictures of like how the crazy changes he made in a short period of time. That's always impressive to me. You know, the light heavy winner at USA's, he had some really good shape. I'm trying to remember who won the heavyweights at USA. That was Austin Connolly. Yeah, he impresses me too. A lot of Jansen's guys do. Cole Eastfold missed his pro card, but I know he's getting ready for nationals, so I've kind of got my eye out for him as well. I think he may be able to pull that one off.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
How about
yeah.
in the IFBB? Any surprises? Anybody kind of catch your attention in some of the earlier competition in the year? Anybody that you're kind of rooting for in terms of the Olympia?
Well, I was definitely really happy to see James Hollingshead do as well as he's done so far this year. I still don't think he's even brought his best yet. That's somebody I've been excited about seeing. Of course, everybody's excited about Derek Lunsford jumping into open. I've always really liked him as a person. Like I met him at the Arnold and still remember the kind of guy he was. Like me, he's a faith-driven guy. And a really good dude. I'd love to see him do well. You know, I've definitely Ian Valier stood out to me a lot with his updates and stuff. You know, I'm definitely more of a fan of some of the guys that aren't quite like top 3, 4. You know, I mean, well, I love Hunter Labrada. He's awesome too. But I like to see these guys that kind of have been at it for a little bit, but they're not quite seasoned as maybe Brandon Curry and Rami. I like to see them on the come up because it motivates me for what I have to do and kind of move up in the ranks. So it's really cool to see that.
What? So you, Derek Lunsford, you brought him up. I've had this conversation several times on the podcast. I think he's not a wild card. I think he's going to do some serious damage in the top 5 of the Olympia this year. What, honestly, where do you see him placing? I mean, you don't have to give me the exact place, but I mean, definitely top 5. Do you see him in the top 5 this year?
I would say he could probably crack the top 5. It's hard to say because we've only ever seen him pull down to 212. So it's like we hope that he has the right formula to come in full and still hard and have that same shape, because it's just hard. It's hard to say. It's a very different ball game when you don't have a weight cap and you can just come in as full as you want. If he comes in on, I don't see any way he wouldn't be top 5 or 6 for sure. I don't know that I see him passing, like, I don't know. I mean, I think in the mix with Hunter Labrada and Nick, personally, I would pick Derek Lunsford's physique. And Hunter being 4th, I mean, I would say he could be as high as 4th, maybe 3rd. I don't know if he's going to pass up Curry and Rami yet, just because of you know how it is. It's really hard to crack that top 3 once there's some established guys up there.
Right.
But yeah, I would love to see it. I would love nothing more than to see those guys move up and kind of pull some of those top 3 guys out of the mix, honestly.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. My greatest hope, which is probably not going to happen this year, is somebody's going to knock off Big Rami. I have nothing against him, but I've said it a lot on the podcast. I don't like his physique, man. His quads are they're just nasty to me. I just don't like his physique. I don't like him as Mr. Olympia. But you know, I'm not going to hate on him, and I'm not hating on him. I respect greatness. I respect the champion. I just don't like his physique whatsoever. I don't like them rewarding that type of physique because I just think there's a lot better physiques than his. But I think he's probably going to win again just because the updates that have been out there. It's just like, I mean, you can't mess with it, right?
Well, it's hard when you've been rewarding that. How do you just change? Then it's the question of, okay, why did you change your judging?
Right.
But I agree with you on Big Ramy. I love to see a huge guy on stage, but there's certain things you see in his physique that are like, okay, that's like a little out of proportion. You've done a little something there you shouldn't. Um, but my biggest issue is just him as an ambassador for the sport. Even with, a lot of people didn't like Phil Heath's attitude, but at least he was involved. And Cutler and Dexter Jackson, all those guys, like they were just better ambassadors. And Big Ramy just kind of wins, and then you don't see much from him. And in this day and age, you kind of want to be that ambassador to represent open bodybuilding while, Chris Bumstead is making classic physique so popular. We need somebody that's going to step up and really push open bodybuilding back into the mainstream.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, if Hunter gets that top spot at some point, Nick Walker gets that top spot, Derek Lunsford, like those three just off the top of my head. There's a lot of other guys, but those are guys that are they were in the mix last year. They're going to be in the mix this year. From my personal opinion, I think, any of those three guys, I mean, they would skyrocket open men's bodybuilding because they're young. They got, crazy physiques. They know how to use social media. They're on YouTube.
Right.
So it'll come. I wish it was this year. I don't think it's going to be, unfortunately, but oh well. Let's wrap it up here, Jordan. I want to ask you, I guess, again, just kind of give everybody a takeaway. You've had a great career up to this point in terms of just being a bodybuilder, not necessarily as a pro, but just as a bodybuilder. You've had a lot of experiences in the coaching and all that. Like, what's something, if somebody's listening or watching this and they kind of like look up to you, or they're like, man, I want to be a pro open men's bodybuilder. I want to do the coaching thing. I want to kind of pursue that life. Like, what are a couple maybe lessons that you've learned over the last several years, or what are some things that maybe you wish you knew when you were a little bit younger that now that you can kind of share with all of us, so that we can maybe glean from you and pursue what we want to pursue in terms of bodybuilding?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing that I've done with this is just remain patient, but in the same sense, I'm a little bit impatient. So I'm patient knowing that the goal is going to take a little while to reach, but I'm impatient with my dedication, my discipline, my work ethic, how hard I train, those kind of things. I think too many people are impatient to jump the gun and get there quickly, as quick as possible, cut as many corners as possible, but also they're not willing to suffer the sacrifices they have to make, go through the days of pushing food, pulling food really hard, whatever it may be. Just like have the patience to go through those hard days for a while, because this is really hard to do. Like, it's not easy. And if you expect it to be easy or come quick, you're going to fizzle out and you're just not going to make it. So be more about the work, less about the talk, and just remain patient. Know that this is a long-term game. So I'm coming up on 10 years of training for what I'm doing. So just patience,
Excellent, man. All right. I want you to, if you don't mind, share your Instagram with us. If you have a website or anything like that, share that with us. And then Condemn Labs, I know that's your sponsor. They've been with you for, I think, right after USA's, if I'm right. So talk about them. If you got any discount codes, any kind of products that are your favorites, share that with us. And then I'll do a quick outro and that'll be a wrap, Jordan.
Okay. Yeah. So my Instagram is IFBB_Jordan Hutchinson. I'm also working on my YouTube. You can probably just search me on there and find me. I'm going to be posting a lot more stuff on there, being more active, trying to work on this TikTok thing too. Don't care for it. But yeah, Condemned Labs has been an amazing sponsor. Michael Jurovic, the CEO, I couldn't ask for more from him. It's been a great partnership, I would say. I try to represent them as well as I can. And I had some offers from some really great companies, and I tell a lot of people this. One company being more popular among bodybuilding maybe right now, but I saw Condemned with the potential of being even bigger than it currently is and on the rise, because once I tried the supplements, just blew me away. So I like to tell people that I've had a few opportunities, and this was the one I chose because of the quality. So we're coming out with a lot of new stuff. We're kind of doing a rebranding, redoing the protein with a whey isolate. Carbs are going to have a HBCD powder now. There's a lot of good stuff coming out, but my favorite products by them would be my pre-workout stack. It's a Convict, is the stimulant pre-workout. We've got our Lockdown, which has glycerol powder for pump, and then DNA Dispatch is a nitric oxide booster. So that's something I take every day. And I think I mentioned a couple other supplements during the video, but my code is Hutch10, HUTCH 10. It'll get you a discount on there, but they're just a really great company, very loyal. And like I said, the owner, Michael, I couldn't ask for a better leader for our team. So they've been really great.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thanks for coming on, Jordan, kind of catch us up to speed on all things, kind of your life, bodybuilding. And, we're going to be looking forward to that pro debut. So I really appreciate it. Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on, man. I look forward to it in the future.
Yep, for sure. All of you who are tuning in to this episode of Behind the Muscle podcast, I just want to say thank you. If you haven't done so already, please hit that subscribe button on YouTube. And then also take this episode of Jordan, share it on your Instagram stories. Make sure you tag Jordan, and make sure you also tag Behind the Muscle podcast so that we know you listened specifically to this episode and found great value in it, in which I know you did. And finally, I will leave you all with this. Remember, behind the muscle, there's always a story. We'll catch you guys later.